sacred and numinous places in the world is a woman's womb. For a baby, the womb is a paradise. It's a place where they're happy, satisfied, and perfectly at peace. By divine nature, they are shielded in their helplessness from life's sufferings and turmoil. And yet, each year in America, nearly 1 million children are ripped out of their mother's womb by abortion. So how is it that the most sacred place on earth has become a place of such violence and destruction? From a transcendental perspective, it's easy to see why evil targets this last vestige of humanity's primordial perfection. But still, the question haunts us ever more urgently. How did this happen? How did we get here? A possible answer is through the corruption of morality and the irresponsible neglect of moral education. Young people today are being brought up in a culture that normalizes the killing of unborn children for the sake of convenience. This idea has been carried to the forefront of society by the prevalence of abortion. Young people today are being brought up in a culture where a law permitting abortion up to the moment of birth received a standing ovation. I think it's fair to say that there is a serious flaw in the system and a horrifying decay of morality and human decency. The moral law, as we're told in Romans 2:15, is written on the hearts of men, and by definition is the appeal to a standard beyond ourselves that distinguishes right behavior from wrong behavior. In Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, he connected 3 things to morality. 1, practicing moderation in one's personal habits. 2, engaging in self-reflection. And 3, accepting responsibility voluntarily. Today's society encourages none of these, and they definitely do not coincide with the abortion agenda. The modern generation sees no value in tempering their passions, and they have no interest in being restrained. So practicing moderation is most definitely off the table. But what about engaging in self-reflection? When a young, single girl goes to Planned Parenthood looking to terminate her pregnancy, she isn't told about the disturbing reality of the procedure she's about to undergo. Planned Parenthood workers cloak the reality of abortion in phrases like fertility management or reproductive rights, and they make use of words like fetus, embryo, or parasite to make the unborn baby seem more like an it rather than a whom. You see, they leave no room for self-reflection. The 15-year-old girl wanting an abortion has had her entire world turned upside down and just wants her life to go back to normal. These organizations like Planned Parenthood do anything they can to make moral introspection all but impossible, especially for the young and impressionable. Coming back to Aristotle's 3rd point, that morality is about accepting responsibility, so many people nowadays have no real sense of accountability. They're so used to only being told what they want to hear and are repeatedly shown that their immoral and wrong actions have no real consequences. Contraception, for example, fosters abortion and is ubiquitous even among Catholics and other Christians. In separating sex from its life-giving power, contraception removes the concept of personal responsibility. It changes attitudes towards the meaning of love, the human person, life, and morality itself. It promotes the selfish use of another's body for personal pleasure, and it leads to unintentionally conceived children, which in turn leads to abortion. Contraception is a fundamental necessity to those pushing the abortion agenda, precisely because it separates sex from sex's natural consequence, and therefore from personal responsibility. This kind of thinking is shaping the world we live in today. The ideologies of abortion are molding the moral compasses of our younger generations, and for that we have every reason to be wary. Throughout most of time, the concept of moral education was supposed to impart an ideal of virtue and make people responsible, honest, and compassionate. It's supposed to help young people in acquiring a set of beliefs and values regarding the laws of right and wrong. But instead, the kind of moral education people receive today, if any, essentially teaches them that murdering their own children is their right. Murder does not follow from morality. There are several aspects to moral law as it has been followed for nearly 2,000 years. The first is known as the Golden Rule. In Matthew 7:12, Christ tells us, "All things therefore, whatsoever you would, that men should do to you, do you also to them, for this is the law." You may have also heard it phrased as, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." A second aspect of moral law is the obligation to protect innocent lives. On March 22nd, a mass shooting took place in Boulder, Colorado. According to the Denver Post, the shooter killed 10 people, and among the casualties was Officer Eric Talley, the first law enforcement officer to arrive at the scene. He saw that there were innocent lives to be protected, and in turn gave his own life for the sake of protecting those people. He did this in an attempt to save the lives of other human beings. This kind of fortitude is an example of a cardinal moral virtue. To choose life in a time of adversity is also courageous, for fortitude itself is the suppression of an inordinate fear, in order to do good in spite of difficulties. Therefore, choosing to protect the life of an innocent unborn baby is morally virtuous. Thirdly, the moral law also pertains to the fifth commandment, "Thou shalt not kill." The injunction against killing innocent human life is a universal moral imperative. But most abortion advocates don't deny this imperative. They negate it by arguing that the baby in the womb is not a person, and so the moral law doesn't apply. You'll notice the key here isn't denying the moral law, but rather deforming it by dehumanizing the victims. And so the question arises, what can we do? To quote Harriet Beecher Stowe, "An atmosphere of sympathetic influence encircles every human being. The man or woman who feels strongly, healthily, and justly on the great interest of humanity is a contestant benefactor to the human race. See then to your sympathies in this matter. Are they in harmony with the sympathies of Christ? Or are they swayed and perverted by the sophistries of worldly policy? Ladies and gentlemen, we are in dire straits, and we must not allow ourselves or others to fall victim to the sophistries of the world. We must continue to speak the truth in charity, to proclaim the moral law as the gift of God that it is, and we must continue to defend the weakest and most vulnerable among us, even in the face of those who wish to shed blood. Those beautiful ones are worth fighting for, and we must be the example to follow. We must have courage in the face of fear, temperance in the face of pleasure, modesty in the face of shame, and charity in the face of adversity. Thank you.